All right, let's get this thing started. So, all right, this is our podcast or whatever, number one. What we're gonna do is go over kind of who we are and why we got into crypto, and maybe give our background. I figured I'll give Greg the first go-to since he is probably one of the first people that I personally know that have gotten into crypto. So, floor is yours.
All right. Well, so definitely I would consider myself someone from the Ron Paul generation. Um, you know, coming of age after college at like 22 years old, it was like the first real election that you were involved in. And first year you got a paycheck was when I was 22 years old. And I got my first paycheck and there was an election going on. And I'm just like confused because I saw how much taxes were taken out of my paycheck all through until my first job after college. Any job I had before that was off the books. So it was always like, $10 an hour. Like you go do your time, do your little high school job, and they just give you the cash and you're good. And
Yeah.
then obviously just common morals that you're raised growing up. You don't steal from people. You don't do this. You don't hurt people or take their stuff. That's kind of what you do. And then you get your job and you see the amount of taxes that are taken out, and sure, maybe they're going towards some good things, right? Like maybe they're going towards services. Like I grew up with a single mom on food stamps, so that's the kind of livelihood I had at home. It wasn't much, and there was assistance. I mean, you could trickle that all the way back to like why we were on assistance and how my mom chose a government assistance route rather than pursuing her dreams. And she kind of got stuck into the dependency of, of government aid, whereas perhaps she would have done better if she pursued her dreams because she was more ambitious before she got lured into that trap. But beyond that, once you go down the rabbit hole and you see what the tax money is being spent on, I just kept running into like rabbit holes of a lot of waste and abuse, and really not going towards anything that would have benefited me or what I thought was even moral or right. Obviously, during this time, there's also the war going on, which, our generation, we were the ones that were trying to go or, wanted to go and fight, and we were the ones there. So,
Still going on the boat, basically.
yeah, and I was in college while my friends were enlisted, um, so I had more time to digest the situation, what's going on over there. And I started questioning why you were there and what's the reason that my friends are over there sacrificing their lives. What's going on? So I'm following this election, trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and then this Ron Paul guy comes on and just is way on left field, just shooting these crazy lyrics in response that made everybody so dumbfounded with his responses. And he was just kind of talking about, if you look up his blowback speech with Giuliani, that was like a pivotal moment for Ron Paul, because it was just like, what? He
Yeah.
says something like, they attacked us on 9/11 because we were there. We were
Right.
there. Like, just like, excuse me, like that was absurd to hear that. But
Right.
Ron Paul also talked about, he was the first politician to talk about the Federal Reserve System and the IRS and, the 13th Amendment, the creation of the Fed. And his whole thing was end the Fed, audit the Fed. So you learned about, he taught us all about what fiat currency was. And he taught us what the gold standard was. And this is all between 2008 and 2012, right? This is when you're learning about, if you were a hardcore Ron Pauler, you were a hardcore like fiscal conservative and the Fed, proponent, just very conservative, libertarian. It was a libertarian movement, but Ron Paul was more like just way more libertarian than anyone else you've ever seen growing up. But so we got sucked into buying some gold. At least I did. And in 2011, there was a pretty big run up. The previous all-time high in gold, that was the last time it ran up. And now it's finally 10 years later, passing its previous high. However, at the top in 2011 in the gold market, there was something with like a LIBOR scandal, or who's ever centrally controlling that commodity. They basically set the limits on what people could buy and sell. So they put a cap on sales. And all of a sudden, it's going mega bull, and it just comes crashing down and didn't recover until 10 years later. But that was disheartening, because it's like, oh, we're moving into gold. We're getting away from like government fiat currency, putting into something stable. And then you get hit with the feeling like this is just another centrally controlled shitcoin market, Like, what the fuck? So that was like a kind of a lost kind of year, like 2012. But it was in the end of 2012 where like Bitcoin came across my computer screen in some kind of like anarchist website I saw. So it came at it from that angle, where it's like, this has all the qualities of gold, but none of its faults, and we don't have to fight the government on the monetary policy and fiscal policy of things. We could actually adopt this technology and just sidestep everything completely. And that like caught my attention. And like, this is very interesting. And I actually used it for the first time. And that's when I really knew, like, holy shit, this is amazing. Because in 2012, they banned online gambling or online poker.
Yeah.
And, I was part of the Texas Hold'em generation growing up. So I like to dabble and go in poker rooms every now and then and just shoot some time.
I still got my hat.
Yeah.
Full tilt.
Yeah, but boom, 2012, they banned that. So, I started learning about some Bitcoin around that time, and it's always in the back of my mind. And I was rooting for it because, if I knew that it gained some value, then that could actually be the beginning of something legitimate, that we could sidestep the government. The idea of getting rich off of it was never even a thought. At least from my end, because I wasn't actually buying it. I'm not someone that was actually buying and selling. I was just learning about it. I was just so excited for it. So then I used it for the first time, because in 2012, they banned the online gambling. 2013, there was a poker room called like Four Seals Poker. And it was Bitcoin, using Bitcoin. You just go, you deposit your Bitcoin in there, and you can take it right out. And if you ever played on any online gambling before 2012, it was always connected to some shady bank out in Central America and the Caribbean. And like, it would take 3 months to maybe get the check if you did a withdrawal. And we still played anyway, but I don't think I ever got a check back, ever. Anything I ever put in there was just like washed money, gone.
Yeah. I was in a similar situation with that.
Yeah. But then I go to this Four Seals Poker, and it's like Bitcoin. You could buy Bitcoin on Coinbase. So like, I go on Coinbase, connect it, set up the account, and I buy some Bitcoin, send it to Four Seals Poker, play my poker games. And I actually was up on the first time, and I exited. I took my money back with me and put it back into my Coinbase wallet. I was like, holy shit, that's freaking great. That's amazing. No problem whatsoever. And then I don't know. I remember just kind of peeling back off of it a little bit. I don't know if it was just like the poker thing or just different life situations. I wasn't playing poker, and I still was excited about Bitcoin and rooting for it, but I still wasn't buying it. It wasn't until the summer of 2015 when I was on a bachelor party. And I guess this particular trip, I was super stoked about Bitcoin, and I was just like telling everybody about it, you know. And one of my buddies on the bus on the way to some gator place was like, "How do you buy it?" And I'm like, well, "I could buy some right now." Like, I bought it for the poker site. Like, I could buy some right now and have it on my phone on the Coinbase app, and I buy like $25 worth, and I'm like, here now I have Bitcoin, just to
Yeah.
show them. Like, it was easy to get right away. And I get home. It's like a week later, same day of the week. I think it was like a Friday to a Friday. I'm like, oh, I should probably just buy like $25 of this, like maybe every week. You know what am I? Why not? So I just did that. I just bought $25 a week every Friday for like straight through the February of 2017. You know, so, and during 2016, it was on its way up to its, you know, uh, building up towards its previous high. And I'm just like looking to my left, looking to my right, and I'm like, this thing's outperforming every other like little 401k I have or anything like that. It was just creeping up, you know?
And your gold.
Yeah. So this is when I started developing like the 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 richest side of it, you know. Now it's like I'm rooting for this technology. Like I know it's supposed to be like worth shitloads, but like, oh yeah, I should probably be buying some of this shit too. Like, what the fuck, you know? And on that first giant pop up in February of 2017, I panic sold. I sold all my Bitcoin that I like collected, and then I'm watching, and then I bought back like 30 minutes later, and I think I lost like point 0.1 Bitcoin or whatever, you know. And I'm like, fuck, that sucked. I lost like point 0.1 Bitcoin. I probably shouldn't do that ever again. You know,
Yeah.
I was so stupid with like anything with financing or charting or technical analysis or how to read a candle. Like, I didn't know anything whatsoever. I just saw numbers going up that were higher, way higher than they were not too long ago. So I didn't have any experience seeing that type of rapid growth in an account, you know, and not having the intellect to know what to do with it. Like, what do you do? This is crazy. And the emotional roller coaster was nuts. And it's pretty much the same mentality that I was dealing with through 2017, and that was a crazy year. Um, and that's when I really started trying to encourage other people to get into it. It was probably like the spring, April of 2017. I got very vocal on Facebook, and some people made out that did listen. Others didn't, but that was a good time to get in.
Now,
Spring.
when you were doing all that, was it just Bitcoin? Were you looking at any of the other cryptocurrencies that were out there, or was it strictly just Bitcoin?
Yeah, so definitely once the financial gains clicked in my head, and then you have Ethereum sitting right there, and you start learning about Ethereum. I got really excited about Ethereum right away when I learned about it. Um, Again, because I come from like the decentralized everything kind of breed, you know. I'm still a Ron Pauler. Like, that's still the ultimate mission. And that's the vision that I always see. And I guess that's what kind of breaks, you know, the Ron Paul Bitcoiners up from the rest of the crowd. It's like, we really just want to adopt this stuff, you
Yeah.
know, because we just know what good it can do. And the financial gain is going to be, it will be awesome if you benefit from that. But I mean, you want the world to be a better place at the end of the day, right? And if we
Yeah.
all contribute to that, you know, it's a vote for me, you know. It's not a vote for this guy, vote for that guy. It's voting for something better for everybody.
Right.
Actually doing it by moving value to that.
Yeah.
So that's the game. I mean, I think you guys have been through 2017 with me. And since then, I've just really studied technical analysis. I really enjoy charting. I like to trade, but honestly, I chart. I like to chart it up every day. I just like to update it and use the indicators and all that stuff. When I learned that you could run a Fibonacci retracement on a chart from a obvious high to low or low to high, and you just see those ratios laying there, and it's like, oh, those are reoccurring ratios all throughout nature,
Yeah.
and it's like that's just so beautiful to me because it's literally a story. I'm an engineer by background in education and profession. Um, so I've always been more into the numbers and the technicals of things rather than
Yeah.
being more social about it. I'm a
I
very
think,
literal kind of guy.
and when you say Fibonacci too, because I think I remember either in calculus or Diffie Hughes
Yeah.
going over that, and you wonder like, oh, what are we gonna really use this stuff for? Next thing you know, you see something that you're looking at, and you go, oh, you put it together, like, oh, that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, engineering school is an odd place because
Yeah.
you're kind of just crunching numbers all the time, and you don't get very deep into the social sciences at all.
Right.
Um, I had I was clueless to the social sciences up until I finally found like Jordan Peterson a couple of years ago, and finally had someone who inspired me to learn
Yeah.
that stuff. And it's at the same time, a couple of years ago, you're learning technical analysis and learning that it's literally just a picture of human psychology, and it tells the story. All those peaks and valleys there, you could tell what was happening at that time or what was going on then. You could just tell the story off the chart. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's funny because you say like human psychology, and that's definitely a big thing where you start looking at like the Google searches, and then you match that up with actually like the people buying it and stuff like that, and it's kind of interesting how they kind of correlate together.
Yeah,
You know.
for sure. Um, so yeah, I mean, 2017 was a crazy time. Um, then 2018 came.
Yeah.
And that's actually my first child. My daughter was born January 14th of 2018. And if you go look at the chart of like what the price was that day, it was like the last day. It was the all-time high, basically.
Yeah.
And obviously now January 15th, my focus is not available to be focusing on what's going on in the market.
Oh, yeah.
You know. Um, and it just started crashing like through the rest of January, and February made like a little bounce up, but then just smacked down again, and it was just like a soul crushing thing. But um,
Builds character.
I held.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely panic sold a portion of like all the altcoins and stuff like that, but I had a certain number in mind for the Bitcoin holdings that I just said, I don't give a shit if it goes to zero. I'm not having less than this. And
Right.
I held that the whole way through.
Now, when you sold your alts, did you sell them for fiat or did you sell them into Bitcoin?
Um, Bitcoin, I think. Yeah, Bitcoin.
Probably the
For
best
sure.
move. I mean, at least you can get to that number and keep that number.
Yeah, I think I might have cashed out a portion of the alts, just to cover some debts, I guess, probably.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, I held the whole way through, and I still, studied what the hell was going on, and was still a total advocate. And what I held was a significant portion for me, so I still believed in it long term. And
Yeah.
2019 made a comeback with the acceleration of all the hell going on in the world. So we're at where we are now. So see what happens.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
mean,
kind of my background, like just engineer, Ron Pauler, and just Bitcoin. That's it.
So it's not a bad way to go, you know?
Yeah, dude. It's definitely the most hopeful thing right now. I don't know if you watched that Michael Saylor podcast with what's his name, but uh, they weren't talking more about like MicroStrategy and the money part of it. He was just talking more about the vision.
Right.
Who was
Like
that
how,
with?
I think I know what you're talking about. It was not like saying how Bitcoin is not just money, but it's an energy, and
Yeah,
it's a way to store energy, and it's, you know, you have to look at it as like a technology, like you would look at electricity, you know, 150, 200 years ago, whatever, you know, whatever it was, like you look at it like that, where some people just don't know what it is, don't really understand it. And then as you kind of dig deeper into the rabbit hole, you find out it's not only is it just like a technology of money, but it's so much more than that. And like every day you're just learning and learning, and like it's a never ending learning experience, because there's not, you know, this, and not just Bitcoin, but the blockchain technology, and not centralized blockchains and stuff like that, but like decentralized blockchains, like the actual applications that it can be used for in the future and stuff like that. It's just, I mean, it's, you know, like they always say, like the killer app and stuff, you know, it's endless. And at some point, you know, if you can kind of see that, obviously it can definitely make for your financial and gains or whatever, if that's your, you know, thing, or just if you want to use it for anything. I mean, like I said, technology is a kind of an interesting thing, where even I was just watching like Iron Man 2, and it says like like there was a thing with, you know, Tony Stark's father kind of explaining how technology can just be used to improve people's lives. And this is something that can definitely improve people's lives in so many ways that, you know, I mean, we probably can't even think of it right now, because it's just, it's not there yet, but it is there in the future, you know?
it's growing every day.
Yeah.
And it's
I
not
mean,
taking anything back from you either. Like Google makes my life easier,
Mm-hmm.
but it steals my privacy. It steals my information. That gives information to these massive corporations, or however you want to look at them, to start manipulating society as a whole.
Yep.
And Bitcoin doesn't do that. There is no central, we don't even know officially who started it.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't even really be a crypto that comes in to replace it.
Right.
Because now there's a new one coming out. Everyone's all on top of it already. You know, there's nothing organic anymore.
Yeah.
it has that first mover advantage too, where, you know, it kind of just, it's already taken control of everything. I mean, I don't know what is it, like 62% Bitcoin dominance? I haven't looked at
Somewhere in the
charts,
60s. Yeah.
you know, but it's definitely up there. I know in 2017, I don't know what it got down to. Was it in the like high 40s in 2017? Like, especially when ETH was like really pumping, and
I think that might have been
or Jab,
2018.
right?
I remember in like late 2018, my portfolio, I had a lot more altcoins at the time, but the Bitcoin value of my portfolio was like,
Yeah.
I wish I would have sold it back into Bitcoin.
And you'd be like thanking yourself now, you know, like, oh, that was a good move.
My portfolio would be more than double what it is right now in Bitcoin if I had done that then. But I didn't know. I was, learning along the way.
January 15th was the top.
The top for
altcoins against Bitcoin.
And what was the dominance for Bitcoin at that point?
36.
36, yeah. So I was even way off on that. That's crazy.
And right now it's 64.88, almost 65. And it's trending.
In the 60s for a while now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a low at 57 on September 3rd. So what are we up?
Yeah, that's what I was saying to you, Matt. That's when I should have bailed out of my altcoin trades I was in at the time, but I rode them down for a while.
I think that's something, if you ever do have altcoins, is look at, actually, I just thought of it now, is like look at the Bitcoin dominance. And when you see it at the lowest, that's probably the time to swap back over.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can increase your Bitcoin that way. And then when Bitcoin does a pump, then, you know, then you can go back if you really want. But, you know, I've got to the point where I'm looking at some of my alts in my portfolio, and I'm ready to just at least dump half of it. Like there's always something on my mind that's like, oh, some of these things may be useful in the future, but the reality is now I'm looking at Bitcoin is like that is the prime goal. Everything else is secondary. Even though Ethereum, I do like the fact of running your own node, the 32 ETH number. I think that most people should, if they can, try to acquire that. So that at some point, once was it December 1st comes through,
Yeah, something like that.
or it depends. Also, they have to have a certain amount staked. I looked at it briefly. It's just basically I'm not. We'll have to maybe go out to that another podcast and discuss that. But that's something that could definitely be nice where the passive income comes in. I don't know if Jeff, if you want to go into how you got into it.
Yeah, sure. When did I get in? I still remember exactly the date and everything. It was December 1st, 2017. I had just gotten in the Carpenters Union, and I had just gotten my first vacation check for the hours I'd worked. So it felt like getting free money in my bank account. And I'm listening to 1010 Wins on my lengthy coffee break. Like, this Bitcoin's going crazy. And I just had this disposable money for once in my life. Bitcoin was too expensive, obviously. So I bought 3 Litecoin, 101.83 a piece at the time. I remember exactly the number. And then it tripled in like a week and a half. So that was it. I was hooked. The greed got me. And then I kept buying like Litecoin and Ethereum and swapping them for other altcoins because, like you said, Greg, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about supply. So I was buying probably the worst decision was a project called Embercoin. Like 3 million of them for like $90. I'm like, if this just goes to $1, all my problems will be solved.
Yeah.
A few weeks later, I think the guy who started the project just like went missing. They were calling hospitals and stuff, just exit scan. He just left. That project's dead, gone. I lost the coins and everything. It's just, but yeah, at least that little flash of greed by tripling my money real quick in 10 days just got me interested enough to start learning about it. Like you said, it started to lean into the idea of personal sovereignty, self-sovereignty.
Yeah.
My own money. Obviously, the dreams of getting rich too. Then I started. Didn't understand.
So that was an interesting time to get in there, and it's December of 2017. So that was right at the top. Right.
I made like one quick profit, and then I got my ass kicked for a year. Yeah.
Oh my
That's how it
God.
went.
That was your introduction to that.
Welcome to crypto.
Stayed in there. Yeah, and I was working at LaGuardia Airport at the time, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, so I didn't have time to do anything but work.
Yeah.
And I was just getting paychecks and just shoveling it into Coinbase again and again. It's interesting too. You were mentioning the chart. It was I just saw buy the top video earlier. Yeah. Kind of funny. I only buy the top, one of those stupid music videos. When Bitcoin started going up, I bought it at like 9,800. Dipped. Started going up again. I bought it at like 8,800. Got the top again. Dipped. Bought it again. 7,800. Bought the top. Dipped again. Like.
Oh my God.
That's when I started looking into technical analysis because I was like, I need to understand why this is happening. It's going to go back to 20,000 any day now. I'm going to miss it. What do I do? Then I kind of, I guess around the end of the summer, I backed off a lot on purchasing and I started learning more, studying TA, making trading mistakes there. Nothing catastrophic, luckily. Had some wins here and there. Then I've taken the approach more recently, just trying to trade up, which I've been having some success with, which is nice. It's more validating that I've learned a skill, I feel like, on top of also any good gains I've made. Yeah, that's pretty much how it started. Started with greed and curiosity. And then, like you said, it's exciting, that feeling of freedom. The rebellious kind of feeling is appealing to me. I'm saying no to that other system. That kind of speaks to you. You're saying it's kind of a vote. I have a choice outside of the systems that I was aware of before, that I always knew were controlled in some fashion, and I wasn't, which is very appealing to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how you come around to that full circle. If you hung on through that bear year and you started studying the tech, and started realizing what it has to offer. If you can make that circle, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, it was cool. Like I ran a Lightning node for a while because I was curious. I did some mining here and there about a couple of other different coins. I was going to a bunch of different meetups in New York City, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
Especially when some of them I really was like clearly the least important person in the room. But it was just cool to be there. Always a cool crowd. Everyone was curious why I was there. Sometimes they couldn't understand why I was there.
Mm-hmm.
That was also disappointing this year with COVID. All that stuff got shut down. I had a couple on the docket, my calendar to go to. And Zoom meetings just aren't quite the same. No offense, you guys or anything. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, hopefully that stuff starts picking up again. Or potentially we could start our own. That's an interesting idea too. The Long Island stuff definitely died. All the crypto meetups over Long Island.
Yeah. Well, you could definitely, hopefully, at some point get something going. It's just unknown, as like anything is right now. You know, and it's funny how you said like the city meetups. I mean, we went together. I don't even, it might have been 18 months ago, whatever, where we saw the Unchained podcast where Vitalik was there. You know, that was pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
that was cool. We definitely didn't belong there. Everyone else had like suits and ties on, and
Right. Like as you said,
we
like,
came out of a job site.
yeah, like when you said, you know, I went to some place that we didn't belong, and we're like, we're at this place, and we're just like, whoa, look at all these people here. Like,
Yeah, we went in and just got the front row seats too. Like,
oh, yeah, right in the
that
front.
was good.
And I am, and when nobody was there, I immediately approached Vitalik. The first thing, hey man, can I get a picture of you? He's like trying to probably prep for some podcast that's going to be listened to by hundreds of thousands or millions of people, you know. And here I am, just like, let me go talk to this
We got to
guy.
pull that picture up one of these days. Yeah, you like photobombed him with the camera and everything.
Yeah, well, actually, and that was like, you know, I thought it was important to get a picture with him, even though like he didn't want to do. He said after, so I said to him, so after it was over, everyone was approaching him. I was like, God, I'm not going to get a picture with this guy, because I thought at some point it might be something like a picture with like Bill Gates or some, you know, Steve Jobs. I don't know, you know, who knows? Like, it'd be pretty cool to have that. And if you're really into crypto, who's to say, like, basically to get a picture with, because you don't know who Satoshi is. So, you know, it's the second biggest one in the market or whatever. And some, you know, everybody knows, not everybody, but I would say like 80% of the people now know what Bitcoin, knows what the name Bitcoin, and maybe like 30, maybe 25% have heard of Ethereum. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10%. I don't know. You know,
I think those are optimistic numbers.
yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there at this point. But I remember when he was leaving, and I was like, shit, I'm not getting my fucking picture. Like, I gotta get this picture. So as he's leaving, I went all the way around all those people, all the way to the door where he was. So I was like, he's got to go through the door. I held the door open for him. I was like, oh, let me be a gentleman, hold the door open. And as I hold the door open, as like basically he left everybody in the pile. Yo, man, could I please get a picture with you? I was like, I just, you know. And he's like, yeah, real quick, you know. And I'm like, snap. And then he just kept going, because this guy, like, you know, he's probably, I can't imagine how busy this guy is, you know. Probably flying all over the place. He's probably was leaving New York City to go to some other place, you know.
Gonna beam back up to his spaceship and bring him to Japan or something.
Yeah, who knows? Or go to outer space, you know. But, yeah.
Back to the future.
Yeah, and it's funny too. You say like when you heard about Bitcoin and 10/10 wins. I also remember telling you on our mobile gaming Clash of Clans, and I started like screaming about Bitcoin too. And you're like, "What's this Bitcoin thing?" And I was like, "Look it up."
I almost forgot about Clash of Clans.
Yes, and that's kind of also, I think, where you probably like put that with the 10/10 wins together, and then like light bulbs started going off in your head, and you're like, "What is this shit?"
Hey, don't try to take credit for my Bitcoin journey there, buddy.
I'm not taking
give it to you. Like, no, it was me, Jeff. I planted the seed.
You got to think those interactions are happening with people right now too, right?
Yeah.
Just every
They happen
day.
all the time.
Just more and more people adopting.
I'll tell you, like, well, Greg, I would see his, you know, Facebook stuff, where he would post things on it, and I was like, it would, you know, so he kind of had like, also planted those seeds, even though I've heard of it before and, I wanted to get into it before. But I mean,
I was just compounding that.
yeah, well,
I was very vocal back in the day.
It's just, you're kind of screaming like, hey, the sky is falling, please check this out. No one right there, and sooner or later, it's just, you're just looking more and more right, and people still laugh at you, like the Gandhi thing, right? What is it,
Yeah,
like,
let them laugh. They'll ignore you until they're jealous,
I never minded being a martyr. Like, I just am emotionally kind of numb in that regard. Getting better as I learn about social sciences and stuff.
Right. That's the best approach.
I just like laying the truth as I see it literally.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my silly engineering strict brain where, I remember my statics professor was like, no partial credit. Building falls down, you go to jail. No jail. So like, so that kind of, you go through 4 years of that crap, and you take things kind of very serious and literal, like the way that you unpack things and find reason and logic behind issues and what's going on, so
logic is definitely
even Michael Saylor was talking about this, which I'm just becoming more and more a fan of this freaking guy.
He's amazing.
He's also like an actual engineer and a real actual badass.
I think he's actually, when he went to school for MIT, he was
aeronautical,
like a rocket scientist, basically.
Yeah.
Literally.
Rocket scientist,
Yeah.
And now he's doing computer stuff, and now he's
like, let me start a business.
But one thing I did learn with this online schooling and stuff is that the classes that they take at MIT are the same classes I took too. So it's like, you're not too far off, but obviously different success stories. That guy's a billionaire, which is pretty dope. So listen to that guy. I'd rather listen to a billionaire than anyone else that wasn't as successful.
Right. Now, Jeff, you have any other stuff to add to your Bitcoin journey, like what it means to you, or kind of?
You know what I wanted to touch on, and you actually just kind of circled back to it a little bit. We mentioned like studying numbers, and you're an engineer. Really, Greg, when you mentioned the Fibonacci levels, that we find them in nature. Mm-hmm. Actually, I just passed a few days ago 5 years sober from alcohol.
Oh, congratulations! So, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. Well, Bitcoin became part of that process. And I look at that as kind of like a turning point of my life. Like things, I started learning all different things, different perspectives, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
They teach you need to find kind of an avenue into spirituality that helps your sobriety and helps your life purpose and things. So that's something I still explore. I don't think that ever ends once you kind of open the door.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I felt like when I look at especially because Bitcoin and crypto is 24/7, 365. Yeah. So you don't have those artificial gaps or anything. It's just the market. Mm-hmm. People and then of course there's algorithms and things like that. But it almost sounds corny, but when you kind of put the Fibonacci levels on it and it just works.
Yeah.
Same kind of way you could look at the strands of our DNA, seashells, all these different things. It kind of I find it humorous, at least, that there's kind of a spiritual, to me, like a connection thing. That's our human community deciding what the price of Bitcoin is right now.
Yes.
It's if we all come from the same place, like the Big Bang, and Bitcoin comes from there too. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting thought process for me.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we're getting to this point that almost technology is bringing us back to nature in that sense.
100%. And I've been talking about this lately more than ever. It's my favorite thing to talk about is that money has become an emotion. It's just a thought now. If you could store wealth by memorizing a key code, your store of value is now just a naturally arising thing in nature. It's no different than any other emotion. So it's really kind of interesting and one of those tough things to get your head wrapped around because it's such a paradigm shift. But I mean, once you start putting puzzle pieces together, you could cross over and embrace that. So I think that's really cool though. And keep it up, eh? That's awesome.
Spiritual Bitcoin, maybe that's the name of the show. Bitcoin spirituality.
Yeah, spirituality. I mean, it's
It's
really
an engineering term too, if you want. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ideas to kick around.
go into that. I don't know. Have any stuff to add with that, Jeff?
Okay.
You have any other stuff to add with your kind of your Bitcoin journey, or going through just the bear market yourself and seeing that, especially getting into it where it was not at the all-time high, but it was just like,
I guess what I'll learn if and when anyone ever watches this as a beginner getting into investing or anything for the first time, just take the time to learn. Be patient, take the time to learn. Don't get burned and just bail out, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of potential here to change your life, you know?
And discipline is always something that I
You
think
learn
that,
it, and it takes maintenance too, but you can do it.
yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
So I would say, I guess I'll go into my crypto story, whatever.
Sure, man.
So the first time I heard about Bitcoin was probably like 2009, right? I had heard about it. I hadn't bought it, nothing like that. I just knew about it. I didn't know exactly what it was. I mean, I looked at it, like I did some investing, nothing crazy. Like, I buy some stocks. Like I wasn't really into it. Like I knew about the stock market. I learned it at a young age, but I never actually put my own money where my mouth is. I'd be like, oh, I'd buy this, I'd buy that, but I never actually did it. When I look at some of the stuff where I had seen stocks like, I was a Netflix user before it like really became big. I was using it like 2008 or whatever, and I wish I bought stock in that. I did not. But I was like probably one of their first like users. I mean, I still actually get mail-in DVDs sent to my house. Like the streaming to me was never a big thing. I would just like getting stuff sent to my house, the Blu-rays, and I'd watch it and I send it back, and that was my thing. I just did that constantly. And if I would have got into that stock, at least for a financial thing, I would have definitely made out. So my dad, he does day trading. That's kind of like his thing now. That's all he does. He's retired now, but he just basically every day, at my house, CNBC was like the only channel that was on, most of the time. So, I was always kind of seeing it. And I had mentioned to him, like, 2009, whatever, when I heard about Bitcoin. And I was like, hey, what's this Bitcoin? I'm like, Dad, because he's investing. I was like, what's this Bitcoin thing? I was like, I heard it could be actually worth something or whatever. And, as a guy that I guess was born in the 50s, he's 64 now or whatever. And you say, like, he's basically heard about it. And he's like, oh, that sounds like a Ponzi scheme or a scam or whatever. I wouldn't put my money into that, So I said, okay, I kind of took his word for it. I thought, he kind of had a good idea of, what he was talking about since he had so much experience doing that. So then, years go down and I'm at work and I work a lot of midnight shifts, and sometimes you have some time, where things are slower at work, and I would be, Googling stuff. And then I remember I was looking at Bitcoin. Now I think it's like 2011 or something like that. And I was like, how do you buy Bitcoin? So I'm looking how to buy Bitcoin, and I'm in Manhattan. I'm looking it up, the price, where to buy it. And it's like these random stores or whatever. And I was like, this just doesn't seem, right. Like it just seems like shady. Like it didn't seem trustworthy. Like I'm going to put my money into something, and I don't really know too much about it. So, I just kind of looked at it and I was like, I just don't trust it. So I kind of pushed it aside. And, after that, I kind of fell asleep at the wheel with looking at it. Then years go by, you get married, you have children or whatever, and then you look and then, you see, like, I saw you posting stuff about Bitcoin, and I see that and I'm like looking at it, and this is, I think, in early 2017. Still haven't purchased anything, but I'm looking at stuff, And then I even before I bought any Bitcoin or anything, like in March, I was like, oh, because people were talking about Bitcoin, I was like, oh, you should check out Ethereum. You know, I didn't even know what Ethereum was either, but I heard it was another cryptocurrency, whatever. And I remember it was pretty cheap back then too. I mean, compared to now, it's like a lot real cheap. You know, I think it was like in the 20s or something like that.
I bought it for 7,
Wow. Yeah, that's great. You know,
but
and
I sold it, so it doesn't matter.
you know, it's all good. You know, but I just saw it and I was recommending it to people too. And again, goes back to my Netflix story where I see stuff, I think it's a good investment, but I just don't put my money into it. Same thing with like Google, and I mean, even recently Tesla, where we had a friend that was going Tesla, and was 300, you know, and I was like, oh, I should buy it, but I don't know. And then it just, you see the run up and you're like, oh, 900, like, wow, that's really overpriced. And at 1500, are you kidding me? And then it goes up even higher and it splits. It was like, what in the hell?
Just rips your heart out.
Oh, it does. And, you know, it even goes back where I had invested in a stock, was it Take-Two Interactive? I don't know if you guys know the stock, the company.
Crash Bandicoot?
No.
That's what it makes me think of.
They make like some sports games, but they also they own Rockstar. Rockstar makes Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, some of my favorite games that are out there. I mean, I'm a huge Grand Theft Auto person and Red Dead. I've been playing the games since I was like, you know, for 20 years. Actually, longer than that. I mean, I was playing the original computer one. So I had bought, and actually I had an argument with my girlfriend, now my wife, about just taking some of our money and buying stock in Take-Two. It was like $17 a share. And I was like, let's just put it in there. And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, let's just do it. I was like, stop, like, let's do it. So we bought the shares, and then it went up to like 22. And then my dad was like, oh, you know, he was like, hey, that's pretty good. I was like, oh, let's sell it and buy something else with it. I think I sold it and I bought stock in like gold, which I still hold today. And I saw a Take-Two. I don't know what it's at now. I think it's at like 140 a share or something like that, maybe 160, you know? So I saw that stock kind of run up and I got out, and, you know, there you go. So going back to, you know, Bitcoin, I always thought like, you know, whatever, I saw the price and I always missed out, you know, I always missed out on something. So, you know, that was always my first thought, as like, not as a technology, not with the Federal Reserve, nothing like that. I was just like, oh, is that a good investment? And then I saw the prices and I was like, you know what? Next thing you know, it's November 2017. I'm like, I can't sit back anymore. I've always sat my hands for everything. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I bought I bought some Bitcoin, not a crazy amount, but I mean a good amount. I think it was like 60%, maybe 65% Bitcoin, then like 20% Ethereum, and then the rest in like Litecoin. And I had just bought that. I didn't really know anything else about it. Nothing about you know, storing your, you know, on a hardware wallet or, you know, private keys or paper wallets, nothing about that. Didn't know any of that stuff. Didn't know about a limited supply and the 21 million, or, you know, how blockchain works and whatever. I just, again, it was more to me as I am tired of sitting back on my hands and watching all the things that I recommend to people don't put my money into, and then go to like ridiculous amounts. Same thing with Amazon. I was the same way with Amazon. I was using Amazon in college, you know, to buy books. That was my thing. And another stock that I should, you know, and where I should have probably gotten into, didn't look into it because, you know, I didn't really think about it. And then these are all things that I use on a pretty regular basis, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, but I'm using these products myself. And, you know, that's something that I've seen some big time investors, you know, say is like, look at your phone and look at the apps that you use on your phone and how much you're using these apps. And it's like, if you use these things a lot, like maybe you should put your money into these things because maybe they're actually worth something. So that was my original intent, was to make a good investment, which, you know, it's still a small portion at this point, but, you know, now that I've kind of looked into more and more stuff and you see where everything's going to go, then it kind of changed your mindset. That's where, like, you know, the Federal Reserve came in into, like, and all these other things, you know, same thing with even just gold and silver. Like, I was never even into that. And then actually buying Bitcoin made me into gold and silver. Am I as into gold and silver? No, but it made me kind of look as like, well, what is money? You know, that's a first question that, you know, you have to ask yourself. And then you start reading it and it's like, oh man, like this is actually a lot more than, you know, I thought. Because originally when you say money, people just think it's the paper in your wallet, you know, like, and then it buys you goods, and that's it. But, you know, if you look at the, you know, history, or look like what money really was, I mean, it was gold or seashells, or just giving, like, you know, trading, you know, your goods and
Needle
services.
felt.
Right. Yeah. I mean, wasn't it Manhattan bought for like some like seashells or something like that? I remember, but like,
Beads, something, I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
you know, and you think about it, it's like, well, hey, you know, people make fun of you, you know, like they told some people, like, oh, tulips, call them Bitcoin tulips, and it's like, well, Manhattan was bought for beads, so, or whatever, you know, whatever it was. So, and how much is Manhattan worth today if you owned that whole property? You know, like it's insane. I mean, obviously,
$24 worth of trinkets.
That's
yeah,
literally what I just read too. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Trinkets.
and that's, you know, I probably $1 trillion worth of property now, or something like that. So anyway, going back to it, so I bought in
More than that.
early November 2017. You know, and I had seen a lot of like Greg's posts where he'd be showing, look at this and this, you know, and you start going back, and then, you know, and I'm like, well, screw it. So I messaged some people, and I'm like, how do I do this? You know, how do I do this? Because that's it. I am tired of waiting. So when I got in, I went on Coinbase and I started buying it. And then, you know, as my dad is an investor, he, at that point, like CNBC started covering it like on a daily basis, because it's running up, you know, going, you know, it was like 8,000, then 9,000. Then, you know, so my dad's like texting me, oh, they're talking about your Bitcoin right now at CNBC, because he's always watching it. So I'd be like, oh, let me go look, you know, so then it gets me, you know, into that state of mind. And I go in there and I'm looking, and all of a sudden the price, like, you know, goes up to like 9, 10, and then the price starts dumping. So I sold a little bit, because I'm like, oh, I'll just take a profit, whatever. And then it shoots back up, and I was like, what am I doing? I was like, no, you know, so I'm like buying and selling. I don't know anything really about like anything, you know, again, just, you know, anytime I wanted to buy something like stocks, I'd be like, here, Dad, here's money. Can you just get me some shares in this? You know, and he would do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so then we see the big run up goes up to like 19,500 or 20,000, whatever you want to call it, you know, and it's insane. Like you're just seeing, like, you're on your portfolio, you're refreshing it like every like 5 seconds. Like, whoa, this is, you know, I've never seen anything like this in my life. So then it hits that peak, and then again it drops off, and then you're like, oh, what's going on? You know, didn't sell. I wasn't selling. I just continually bought. You know, I was buying, and everyone was like, "Oh, buy the dip." So I was doing buying the dip, where it was like it would go to like, you know, 15,000, then it would go like 13, and I'd buy it, and then it would go up to like 17. Now I wasn't selling it; I was just waiting. Then it would go down, and then when it down, I bought it, and then, you know, I play out, and then you see like it just continuously go down. Then I think May, it was in like the 10s, 9s, you know, same thing, just kind of. And then at some point, what was it, like December 2018? Was that the bad?
End of the year, towards the end of the year.
Yeah, at the end of the year. So
That was the bottom, yeah.
so everything starts going down then. But I had, instead of having that like scared mentality, I actually took the opposite approach. I was like, no. I was like the lower the price got, the more I started buying. And I was like,
Sick.
literally like fuck this, I'm doing it. Like I had I just didn't care. I was like, if it goes to zero, then whatever. I was like, it's either zero or hero, you know, like I couldn't do it. Like, so I would, every time it was dropping, like to create, like, it was like 3,000, I was just buying as much as I could possibly afford, you know? So, you know, and I basically have used that approach since, you know, I just dollar cost average every week, and you know, or even if it's every other 3 days, it depends, you know, it depends upon my work schedule, how much money I have. If I work overtime, you know, if I worked overtime in a week, I'd be like, well, if I worked overtime this week, I'm putting 50% of that overtime money that I worked into it if I can. Like anything, you know, I would do, you know, to just increase and make myself have a higher BTC thing.
Nice.
I also did get into a lot of the altcoins. Obviously Ethereum, I still am favoring that. I think that it still has potential to do lots of things, because I don't look at it as the same as Bitcoin. I think it's just has different applications. And like, you know, you look at the, was it the Ethereum Alliance or whatever, and you see all these companies that are in this thing where, you know, you have, I don't know how many companies are, but if you look at the actual list and you see that, and you see like companies that are well-known companies, you know, Fortune 500 companies that are using this, you know, blockchain to build their whatever on, you know, I don't know what they're doing. Probably if we do see a central, what is it? Central backed digital
Central bank digital currency, which I didn't want to interrupt you, but Australia, I read, is already building theirs on the Ethereum blockchain.
Right.
Ah.
So, you know, when you see that, because like that's kind of what a lot of the altcoins were when people, you know, which kind of blows my mind, because, you know, there's people that do buy the alts, but if you look, you know, some of them are ERC20 tokens. So these are just tokens that are built on the Ethereum blockchain, you know, and then you see some of the prices where they're more than Ethereum. And it's like, how could that, you know, unless it's obviously a supply number, which definitely could affect it, but, you know, how would this be more valuable or have a higher, you know, so that's just another thing that I was looking at, you know. So anyway, going back to where I was before I got off track. So, you know, I would buy like different alts, you know, there are some that I still hold today because I still, like I said, I think that they're going to be worth something, or I just haven't let go because, you know, like I don't think that they are going to just go away. You know, I think at some point, you know, there isn't going to just be one crypto. I think there'll be multiple cryptos. Is it going to be 3,000 or 2,000? No, definitely not. But I could see maybe 30 or 40 different blockchains out there that are useful, and each has their own kind of like specific thing that they're using it for. So, you know, and then going back to now with Bitcoin, you know, where you start looking at the Federal Reserve, and then that was another thing too, where I never really looked into that. Like politically, like I definitely am for more personal freedoms and for people to basically do what you want to do as long as you're not harming or hurting anybody. You know, and the taxes thing, like, you know, again, as when I graduated college, Greg and I did go to the same college for engineering, where, you know, when you get a job out of college and you're making a certain amount of money, and then you're just seeing like so much of it being taken out. And again, what are they using this money for? Because, like, you know, you hear stories like about in Iraq where they have a $100,000 Mack truck that all it needs is like an oil change or something like that, and then they go, well, no, just we'll blow it up. We'll just order a new one, you know, or something like that. You're just like, well, why if you just do an oil change, it's like $50, you know, just replace the oil. And, you know, they're just wasting our money. You know, obviously, like, there are certain programs that I think are good and that are necessary and should keep in place for people, you know, that need help and stuff like that, even though there are certain times where these programs can be used and abused, which can be problematic. It's hard to really track those things because, you know, you have to now hire more people to keep track of that. So it's just kind of an endless money pit for the government to kind of just keep spending. And I mean, and if you look at what's going on now, where you would think like a Republican president, well, no longer soon, but that would come in and cut government and cut spending and stuff like that. And then it goes and then he just racks it up even more, and the deficit's even greater, and the money printing is even higher. So you look at that and you go like, well, what the hell? Like, you're supposed to be for limited government, but you keep increasing it. So you look at that and that becomes problematic also. So again, going back to the thing where you look at, I look at Bitcoin too as like a savings, because sometimes it's just hard to save certain ways, and I find myself looking at it as like it's almost like a savings account, but instead of it kind of just not just sitting there not doing any interest, because like you have money in a bank account, it's like 0.01% interest, and you're like, what is this? Like this is
Just make it zero and stop insulting me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just sad, because I mean, I remember being younger as like a little kid, and it was like 6% on a savings account, which I mean, it's still better than what the inflation rate is, because we don't even know what that is. I mean, they tell us it's what, 2% every year, but they're saying
it's usually 2, and this year they're moving it to 4.
Yeah,
foreseeable future. Yeah.
And you look at that and how something like that can just kind of just go exponentially, where it's 4, then it's 8, then next thing you know, you blink and you go, wait a minute, and you also look at like, I saw something.
Nobody knows the number.
Well, that's the big problem, right?
Ron Paul always tried to audit the Fed. They've never audited the Fed. You don't actually know. So,
yeah. And I don't know if it was Kennedy or something like that. He tried to do something about the Fed, and next thing you know, he gets assassinated.
HR 111111 or something like that. It was he was trying to save the silver certificate, and just keep some part of the gold standard, silver standard,
right,
associated with the money. And that he got killed.
Yeah. So you look at all that stuff, and I mean, and same thing with then you start looking at like what the gold standard, like I said, I never looked into any of that stuff, and it kind of, besides it as an investment, it then became an educational thing, because then you start looking at all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, like I never realized that, and then you try to, it is a lot. And and I'm still learning every day. Every day is like a learning, you just picking up as you go, because it's funny how you get people that don't know anything about Bitcoin, and they're like, oh, can you explain Bitcoin to me? And it's in a text, and it's just like, I'm sorry, like I need you to sit down with me, and we need to like sit down and have a long discussion, because
oh my gosh,
because like it really kills me when somebody says like in a text like, can you explain Bitcoin to me? And it's like, no, don't do it.
I've like hyperventilate lately. Like I just don't even know where to begin.
I find it's better. Not that it's an efficient way to do it, but like I want to know where they're starting from with their understanding of all this before you can start talking about it. Because otherwise, it's like before I even understood what Bitcoin was or any of this, I heard these terms and I was like, I don't even know what that means. I have no idea.
Yeah, speaking a different language.
Barrier to entry is it seems very steep.
And then you show it to them, like you show them like articles about it, and they're like, this makes my brain hurt. And I'm like, yeah.
I think what's helpful now with the COVID thing and all the stimulus and or whatever you want to call it, like it helps having some of these things happen in real time. Because people are like, well, they just added $3 trillion into the economy. What does that mean? Like, perfect. Let me bring up Bitcoin,
Yeah. Well, that definitely sent the Bitcoin experience, whatever you want to call it, into like hyperdrive, because it's like they added more fuel to this fire, because you kind of looked at it and you saw kind of what was happening and what was going to happen, and it just kind of like just gave it more, just got into a quicker pace, because who knows
what's the year of the halving too. Perfect timing.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate though, because I mean, because we've been home, I feel like people have, I don't know, there's still the hardcore people that don't seem open to it.
Right.
I know some personally, yeah.
I spend a lot of time speaking to like my political opposition as much as I can, and that's a really large group. And like they're not about it at all whatsoever. And it's a damn shame, because if they just gave it the time of day, they would realize how unifying the technology is. Like,
Right.
it's literally just a beautiful thing for humanity that will totally unite everybody. Because the money will be fixed, right? It's a closed system, engineered money that will help everybody. So, but I feel like there's going to be a section of the population that will never, they're going to go down with the ship kind of thing. And that's why in 4 years, we'll probably be the most important voting bloc in the elections, the Bitcoin
Yeah.
people.
It's definitely interesting. The thing is, though, too, is it's becoming, you know, a younger person's game, in the sense where if you were to give somebody like maybe 30 years older or whatever, I'm 37. Jeff, you're 37. You're 35, right, Greg?
Yeah.
So like, if you were to give somebody that was like double our age, and you said like, if you show, they would probably prefer gold or silver or anything like in that nature, versus now as generations, when they're coming up all on the digital age, being brought up, growing up on the internet, where people play video games and they're selling swords or whatever for money, or they have a character, so the digital age where you're building up your characters and stuff like that and doing things like that is becoming a monetary thing. And then they look at younger people, they go, well, what would you rather have, $1,000 in gold or $1,000 in Bitcoin? So a younger person might look at it and go, oh, it's a shiny metal. What does it do? Oh, I can wear it on my ring, or I could wear it, like, or can you have some digital type of money that you can just use and send it anywhere and do anything with it? And it's like, younger people looking at it like, well, I probably would just rather have that.
Just
It's from,
upload it in a DeFi platform and just earn interest on it.
right. Yeah. And
With
that's
a click of your thumb. It's amazing.
exactly. So it, and also when you're growing up, using the technology, where like, I was just talking to my dad today, and he got a new iPhone. He doesn't know how to use it, and he doesn't even know how to like go on the browser and search for stuff. He goes and so, oh, what's did the Jets win yesterday? And I'm like, they didn't play. They, because he doesn't have TV right now, because he's down there and he's going to a new place. So I said to him, I was like, they didn't play. I was like, you have a phone, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you could just type it in Google. I don't know how to do that. I was like, well, why don't you learn? He doesn't almost want to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this will make your life easier if you just kind of use it. And then this kind of goes to what Bitcoin is like, explain how to Google something. And I go, all right, Dad, here's the private keys to access the crypto. You got to type this in. And then if you want to send it to this person, you got to copy this, or you just scan it. And he'd be like, right then and there, like, just do it.
Yeah, but don't make a mistake or you lose everything. It's
Right.
easy though.
You're reminding me of a thought I've been having lately. And it's like, we're supposed to take care of our parents.
Yeah. But the problem is when
that kind of hits you, like, it's like, oh, dang.
And it's like, when you try to help them, and I'm trying to like say, hey, listen, this is what you got to do, and he just doesn't want to do it. It's like, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. You try, and it's just like, because I said to him, I was like, listen, why don't you get this and that, and then it'll make your life easier. And I'm trying to argue with him, trying to help him, and he doesn't want to listen to it.
Oh,
So,
man.
how would you now with any crypto try to get somebody? Because right now, it can be kind of complicated, right? I mean,
well, Grayscale makes it very easy. You're paying a premium, and there's a tax, whatever you want to call it. But
yeah,
it makes it very. You can just go on the stock market and you buy shares of BTC.
And that is kind of like a big, because somebody at work or in a work text, whatever, was asking me like, oh, is there a Bitcoin ETF? And now there's not a Bitcoin ETF, but I actually said Grayscale BTC. That's what I said, GBTC, because for somebody like him, he was like a retired guy. I'm like, just look at that. So it would be good for that, but it kind of is not the same thing. Just like with Robinhood, if you buy Bitcoin on Robinhood.
Grayscale, I believe you can cash that in for actual Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Really?
It's 1/1000th of a Bitcoin per share of GBTC, but I believe it is redeemable for actual Bitcoin.
So that's
I mean,
100.
you hear about how much of the supply they're absorbing on a quarterly basis. It's absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's scary.
I believe GBTC, if you did want to take possession of it, you do have an avenue to do that.
Yeah, but again, I still think it defeats the purpose. Same thing even with PayPal. I think PayPal getting into crypto is wonderful on the public, like publicity, getting it out there. But it's still, and maybe it will get people to like be more interested. And it's like, say somebody for me who just heard about what Bitcoin is and kind of wants to do it as an investment. But then once you get into the rabbit hole, you go, oh, wait a minute. I don't even really own it. I don't even know if it's there. They always say like because you could literally they could say they have whatever. I mean, isn't that whole thing? What was that? Like they have a day once a year or something like that, where they say you're supposed to withdraw all your crypto from an exchange just to verify that they actually have it. I don't know.
Something with the keys, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think that it's a good thing in the sense of publicity, but I don't.
I mean, it seems to me that that's very similar to the gold and silver markets. Like, how do you know that paper gold is really, does it exist or not? And you can still trade it. It's just a different, to me, I'm looking at it as it's a different product, and one's better than the other. Of course, it's better to own physical gold.
Right.
If you got some money to throw around and you're trading it. And I guess that brings me kind of to the point. I feel like the three of us have turned a corner, is like we're looking at Bitcoin as like, how much fiat can I buy back with that to purchase the things I need? Whereas people now are looking more like the other way. How much Bitcoin can I get to get more fiat? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. I mean, hearing everyone talk about the stock market going up and like the housing market's going up. It's booming. Everything's so great. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? That's not good. Everything's getting more expensive. Don't you see it? Like your salary is worth less. Your savings are worth
buying
less.
power.
What
That's a very
the hell?
important concept, yes.
And that's a good thought process too for the haves, but the people that are have-nots or people that are just getting started, they're really at a disadvantage where, if somebody goes, like you said, like you just getting out of college, imagine getting out of college right now, you're loaded with student debt. You might not be able to find a job right now. I mean, if you're lucky, you do. But if and now you say you get a job and you go to look for a house, and the housing prices are insane. I mean, it's just insane. So how?
Yeah, getting completely priced out. Everything.
How is the market going up like that? Good for people like that are young. I mean, I can understand if you
the wealth gap is just going
right, and and then again with the taxes, like I was talking to somebody about that because they were saying, "Oh, it's great, your housing's going." I was like, "Yeah, but now imagine I'm retired, I have a fixed income, my house price goes up. What happens when your house price goes up? Your taxes go up. When your taxes go up, now your fixed income has changed because now you're no longer on the same fixed income, along with prices of food. I mean, right now gas is cheap, and the only reason I feel like it's cheap is because people are not using gas. I mean, no one's really going anywhere. I mean, and even if they are, I mean, people aren't traveling.
Total mind control.
So it's great, and then they're printing out trillions of dollars, and it's just basically going into the stock market. So the only people that are really benefiting for this is obviously if you have a 401k or something like that, that's great, good for you, and I'm glad. But there are people that I have friends that have no stock. They have not they're struggling, and
paycheck to paycheck. Yeah.
Right. There's and do you think they really care if the stock market is at all-time highs? No, they just want to know is what's the price for rent? You know, what is gas doing? Can I pay my bills? Oh, electricity's going up, or this is so that's the problem with a lot of that. And when you continuously printing money, you're just basically doing another tax on people, and they don't see it because it's not physically coming out of your pocket where you have to pay it, but it's just devaluing money that you have, or the value that you have, you know. And when you're buying Bitcoin, or maybe other assets like that, at least it's kind of the store of value where it's not going to depreciate, and you're not going to have your money just lose its value, where and that to me is very important. And I don't think that there's a lot of people that look into that, that are on the other level of just getting out of college, or just trying to pay their bills, or what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
like I said, the housing market's great. Yeah, it's like, oh, your house goes up, but like,
Yeah, it's a total illusion.
When you sell that house to buy another house, the price of the other house also went up. So
the
so
prices, you want to see prices go down.
yeah.
That's how you know you're thriving. The money.
I think
is
when you
worth
mentioned
something.
earlier too that you're using Bitcoin kind of like a savings account was a very good point.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, for sure, because I was never a good saver, because it was just like comes and goes. It comes and goes. It was my attitude.
Yeah.
Now when I acquire Bitcoin, I'm like, if I feel like I want to sell it, I'm like, do I really need to sell this? Do I need to sell it?
Yes.
And I never do.
That's
Still
the
haven't sold
natural.
any.
Yeah, that's the psychological effect of a hard money. A money that is gonna create delayed gratification. If you hold it, it's gonna be worth more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way that the gold standard was too. When the dollars were backed by gold and people had gold, you had to really convince me to give up my gold, because that's my wealth. That's my store of value, and I'm not gonna buy a refrigerator that's just going to crap out in 3 years, and I'm out my gold and I'm out a refrigerator, So it's not uncommon for a refrigerator from the 1960s to last 40 years, because products were made worth it for people to release their value. And
now they got to get smart TVs to mine Bitcoin. So to bring us full circle again.
Yeah.
And they will.
Well, and it also goes back to, I don't remember the name of the theory, but there was a theory back in the day where, and if you kind of look at Bitcoin is like this, is like you want to, back in the day, like let's say in circulation, there were like silver coins or other coins that actually had more value. So people would, when you got those, instead of you going and putting them back out into circulation, you held on to them because they actually have more value. I think it's been the R or something like that. But so it's the same thing like Bitcoin. When you have it, and once you get it, you don't want to relinquish it. You want to like use your fiat, your paper money or whatever, and not spend that. Now, obviously, at some point, if it gets to be these astronomical prices, where I got back to another time we were talking about, where I don't look at it as where Bitcoin has a price of like in dollars, but more of like a purchasing power price, where this can get you a car or something like that, and you're like, oh, like that's good, because a car, is say $40,000, and now this can get you a car. And then 10 years ago I bought it, like it was not going to get me a car. I'd probably need a lot more of that to buy a car. And you see it today where I saw a picture. I mean, I'll try to see if I can pull it up and show you. I know it would probably be better if I had a different format of doing this, but if you
We'll
look
improve
here,
as we go.
right, it's the price of
Oh yeah, I saw that.
okay, where it's an iPhone, I think, and the price of an iPhone back in 2010 was 8,557 Bitcoin. And then and that was iPhone 4 back in 2010. And those were,
What's the one now? It's 0.07?
Yeah, 0.07 for iPhone.
If it's that little Bitcoin, why do you got that smashed ass phone?
This one? No, this one's
screen's busted.
No, it's the screen. I just need a new screen.
Spend some Bitcoin, get a new phone. Come on.
No, this actually.
No, it's not worth it.
No, I don't look at it as I don't need a new phone. And plus of my job, I mean, I work in a power plant. Like I pull that thing out and like it could get destroyed by chemicals or whatever. So
peace of mind.
I'm not like sometimes I take my phone, I put it in my hard hat, and I listen to my Bitcoin podcast. If I don't have my earphones, then I could just have the right acoustics where I could listen to everything. So I've had times where I had my phone in my pocket, not this one, but another one. I leaned over and my phone fell out of my pocket and went into a trench full of water. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it was working. But again, so that's why I look at a phone as like, I don't need a new one unless it comes out with something drastically amazing. Like, I think this one's the Samsung 10, whatever. It's still relatively new. It's got 3 cameras in the front, and 2 in the back. Well, I don't know.
It's a really
So
nice phone.
it's a decent,
I was just
it's
kidding. You didn't have to defend your phone all this time.
no,
You're
I
making
know.
jokes.
It looks bad because like my what do you call it, screen, the protective screen just started peeling off, and I just never got a new one. Especially with COVID, because normally when I buy a new screen, I make the people in like the Verizon store put it on for me because I'm so afraid that I'm gonna do it wrong.
Bubble it up, yeah.
Yeah, so so that's why. But it's gonna happen soon. One thing at a time, I guess. But it's just like I said, going back to the Bitcoin stuff. It's just definitely. I mean, I don't know where it's going to be in 5 years or 10 years, but I feel like it's going to be at a point where it's going to be in everybody's lives. I think people are going to own Bitcoin without even knowing they own it. Where you have a 401k or something like that. Next thing you know, there's 10% of it in cryptos, and then and that's where I think it's going. I mean, I think it'll be getting there sooner than later because you're starting to see now these companies all just starting to barrel into this stuff.
Druckenmiller was the guy today that came out.
Right.
Bill Miller's another one that came out today. Yeah, today.
Yeah. So Drunken.
JP Morgan said, I'm just reading some headlines real quick that I saw earlier. Institutional investors appear to prefer Bitcoin over gold ETFs or just in general.
Right. Yeah. It's insane because
getting traction, momentum's picking up.
Company where Jamie Dimon was calling Bitcoin a fraud and stuff like that. Meanwhile, at the same time, that guy was buying it.
Yeah, he's telling them in the back rooms like, you better get as much.
And he was telling the people at that worked for the company basically like, if anybody is caught buying this, they're gonna get fired.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely insane. It's just the way things are going. It's just wild. It really is, and it's wild because it's still so early. I tell people all the time. I actually, a coworker of mine, I was talking to him about it, and he was like, "Oh, but I don't know, $15,000 is pretty steep." I was like, "Well, first, I don't. If you have $15,000, I don't recommend just buying one Bitcoin because it might go down to 12,000 tomorrow, and you're gonna call me tomorrow and be like, yo, you like, what are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
So I told him, first of all, you can buy partial Bitcoin. And that's when his eyes really opened up. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, dude, if you want to buy $1 worth, go ahead. I mean, the fees might be $2, but you could still buy $1 worth. I was like, if you want to buy $20 worth, you can do that. You can do $20 a week. I was like, you buy lunch how many times at the job? Your lunch costs $20. I was like, skip lunch for a day or bring your own lunch, and then use that money to buy Bitcoin. I was like, you'll and if it goes down, then whatever. I was like, don't use the investing term, or is like, don't invest more that you're willing to lose. Like, you got to look at it as like you just putting it away as like for a rainy day fund, because sooner or later, like, that rainy day fund is going to be like ridiculous. Like
Tsunami fund.
And you see some of these tweets, you don't know if these people are just being ridiculous or not, but if you would have told somebody 10 years ago, oh, Bitcoin's going to hit $10,000, they'd be like, you're out of your mind. Like, you're delusional.
Yeah.
Get out of it. It's
my all-time favorite Facebook post was when it was at 185. I was like, Bitcoin's at 185. Holy shit. Like, the implications are incredible. I said something like that. And,
right.
But, and again, I wasn't even holding any. I was just so excited that it was like worth something and that like people were using it,
Yeah.
And that was cool. I was rooting for it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, you see it moving like that, it's definitely a lot to look at, though. I mean, because when you see these big price swings, it can affect you emotionally, but that's when you have to just turn your emotions off and say, listen, how long are you in for this for? Are you in it for a year, or are you in it for a lifetime? Because that's the way I look at it. It's like a lifetime where I can build something and then hopefully have something where, my family can have something for hopefully generations. I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen, but if, you go back to the 21 million, they always say there's more millionaires than there are Bitcoin, out there.
Mm-hmm.
So every millionaire on this planet cannot own one Bitcoin each.
Mhm.
And the number, like they're being eaten up, between Grayscale, which is buying like more than's being mined.
It's going to be a great wash, and kind of interestingly enough, rightfully so, because they're the ones that's just been getting pumped up all these decades.
Right.
So it's just like, some of them are going to smarten up, but others won't, and that's where the wealth transfer will take place.
Yeah. And especially when it goes back to what I was saying, where you have the younger generations that are all digital people.
Oh,
And when, they have a dad that's got tremendous amounts of money, and something happens and their dad passes away, and then they go, well, what am I going to use this money for? And they go, oh, I'm just going to buy a Bitcoin with it. And then that's when you're going to really see a big thing happen, where you have these people that don't want anything to do with crypto. They make fun of it. I don't know why I argue with the people like online. I guess that's just
You're
my
smiling
argument.
now because you enjoy it. It's obvious why you do it.
I always, I don't know, like everyone used to, even when I was in college, like I remember we had somebody that we were with, and he'd be like, Matt, you always like to argue. And I was like, I don't know, sorry. Like it's in my nature.
It's not necessarily bad. You can call it a skill set.
Yeah, but it's really, it's not, it's just sometimes like it's good and bad. But when I see people online and they're like, on Facebook and or Twitter, and they're bad mathing it, I have to like go after them. I don't know why I do it. I just go after them, and not like in a terrible way, but you just like, because like you want to kind of first know why they think this way, and then when they give these like delusional, not delusional, but like ignorant responses where they really haven't done any research, and it's like, dude, I do this for like every day for like 3 hours a day. I'm just like informing myself, because I'm in the car commuting to work. That's all I listen to. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're always searching for more and more stuff and more the newest whatever. It's like sometimes you can't even find enough information. You're just searching for more and more stuff, and especially you're not looking for stuff that's like where it was in 2017, where it kind of got really ridiculous, where you had like everybody and anybody talking about it. And it's like, you got like 17-year-old kids going like, look at this. This is the newest coin. It's the hottest, newest coin. It's called Patcoin. You can get 1 million for $10.
You had to
And
bring
if
up
that goes
Patcoin.
up- Yeah. And if that
I still
goes up,
have my Patcoin. It's not worth selling.
yeah, but if that goes up to $1 and you bought $10 worth and you got 10 million of them, you got $10 million. And
They
you're
did
like,
that with Dogecoin
oh
this year.
my God.
They
I'm
did that with
gonna
Dogecoin this year on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. You see that, and you're
I
like,
was in
whoa,
that trade too. I got lucky on that one.
I could own 100,000 of these things. If it hits $1, it only costs me $20. I can have $100,000 with a $20 bet. I'm in. And it's just like, dude,
It was
I think there's 60 Doge created a second or something like that.
yeah, you should have just went and bought lunch. You would have been better off. I mean, or bought Bitcoin, because that's another thing. Like you buy these coins and then you go, man, how much did I waste on these fucking bullshit altcoins?
That's one thing. If I could go back and tell myself is buy Bitcoin and learn how to trade, maybe.
Yeah,
But like I did the same mistake I think a lot of people do. I started out with these other shitty coins and delusions of these wild riches, Lambos, and etc.
My
Right.
2017 was a little trippy because I was already fully prepped with what this was going to kind of potentially be. So when you were buying Litecoin in December, I was running into the office saying, fuck, I'll never be able to afford to buy anymore. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's it. Just got to be happy with what I got.
Yeah, I remember you made a comment once on Facebook, and I made a comment like, yo, it's like $15,000, and you were like, sad face. And this is in 2017, and now I kind of understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
Because
I
when you
was
see the
pissed.
price run up,
Yeah, but how do you feel now about $15,000? You're like, oh, I'll buy some more.
Well,
I'm
no,
buying every day. I don't give a fuck.
and if the price goes down, I mean, you're just getting more for your dollar because that's the way I look at it. Like, because when it was at $10,000, I was like, all right, $100 gets me 1,000,000
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like,
That kind of speaks to if you believe in the cycle, which I think to some degree you have to.
Yeah, the 4
you were mentioning, Greg, like early 2007. Was it 16? Whenever the timing was that you were getting back to the previous all-time highs?
Oh yeah, 2016 it started creeping up to the previous high,
And that's where we're about at right now.
yeah, exactly.
How far it went last time. That's why this is getting so exciting right now.
Same vibe. It's the
Yeah.
same vibe. Just creeping around like.
No one noticed yet.
But we're right at that point. We're at that like what is it? Maybe that December point of.
Yeah.
It's right on schedule. It's so weird.
Every election year.
Oh
Every
my
election year,
gosh,
you know?
it's really creepy. But definitely the infrastructure is completely different than 4 years ago.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it right now.
And it goes back like there was a YouTuber that Jeff and I listened to. I might have sent you some of his videos, Bob Lucas, where he has this whole thing about the 4-year cycle of Bitcoin. And you looked into it and you go, wow, I never looked at it this way with the halving and this and that. And then you start looking and right on target, just the same thing with like Plan B and his stock to flow model. And you go, man, like the math and the timing just seems like perfect. Like how much more can you be like perfect with this kind of situation? You know what I'm saying? So that's very strange. And then you wonder, like, if it stays on target, does it go to January 2022 or December 2021 where you see this ridiculous number of like 100,000 or whatever you want to call it, and then because you tell people that now and they go, they look at you like, I even say that because somebody's like, oh, what do you think Bitcoin's going to do? I was like, I think in a year from now you're looking at 6 figures, and they start giggling, and I'm like, and I look at it like this, I'm dead serious, and they go, you're really serious? I'm like,
they're laughing in your face, and you're kind of like,
I was like, no, I'm dead serious, and I'm like, and they're like, why? And I was like, math. I was like, math, and just the way like people are predicting. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know. It could take longer. Who knows? It could take less time. It all depends also on.
Depends how you look at it. Are you looking at peaks? Are you looking at the cycle itself? There's an interesting channel. I don't know if you guys are aware. Benjamin Cohen, his name is, Into the Cryptoverse.
Right. I've listened to his stuff.
His technical analysis is very interesting. He's like these logarithmic algorithm. It's not tracking the price action so much as it's tracking the cycles.
Right.
He talks about the lengthening cycle, which you could see. So he's saying the peak might come more towards the end of 2022. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't hit a 6-figure Bitcoin next year either. We don't know what that peak is going to be,
Right.
Yeah.
A longer, like the model as
which I could see it lasting longer the way things are playing out, is like institutions are starting to get in.
Yeah.
That money's going to start surging in,
Yeah, it could go crazy. Just
all of a sudden one day there might not be Bitcoin available on the spot trading markets. This might not be there.
You got to keep in mind too, going to the hundreds of thousands isn't the same percentage growth as it was to get to 20,000 from the single digits. So
Very true.
it's like that's not out of like reason to compare to the previous cycles. It's actually way less.
Yes.
And I mean, if I was able to share my screen, I could talk you through like my technical analysis.
We'll definitely have to start in the future.
This might be a good time because it's getting late too to talk a little more about how we might want to improve the next episode. If we want to put a title on this or whatever our next actions might be, whatever these ideas we might be coming up with.
Yeah, well, definitely. Technical analysis is definitely something we can get into. That's not really my expertise. Like, I know a decent amount about it, but
that could be like. We should. I feel like we should think about, like, are we going to talk about Bitcoin on this? Having more of a focus than just technical analysis.
I think it would be cool just to just quickly throw up a chart and just like if we are mentioning something, it's like, oh,
I think that would definitely work.
Probably
also,
maybe like Bitcoin and just like the Bitcoin dominance and a couple of charts. We don't need to start getting into altcoin trading and all this crazy stuff. I don't think.
I just like to use it to solidify kind of what we're talking about. It's just like,
we could show on the chart. Yes, that makes sense.
I always have it readily available, kind of dotted up, and I could give a an easy element.
Can you screen share right now? Give it a shot.
It says the host is not allowing.
Yeah, you can't do it, bro. Try it now.
Let's see.
Yeah, well, definitely, I would say we should definitely have some sort of method where we kind of look into.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
There we go.
What do you guys see?
I see your screen.
Oh, cool.
Trading view having.
Brave new coin, liquid index.
Oh, yeah. So these vertical magenta lines were the previous halvings. This first one is in 2012, 2016. And
I like the airplane.
Yeah. This dotted yellow line is where the halving was before. And you can see kind of since the halving, it's been right on schedule. And then these green boxes at the top, I have basically the cycle from the breakout.
Peak to peak.
Basically peak to peak from the previous high. So how long was that? And then you look at the runs. And the first run between, the first cycle was 3,500%. 2016 cycle was 1,500%, 1,600%. And if you take a very conservative view of the next cycle, say 400%, by the end of the cycle, you're looking at 100K. So,
yeah.
That also looks like you lengthened the time, just like I was saying too.
Yes.
Proportionally.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So I kind of did that. So that's kind of my estimation by the end of the cycle, which is 2024, would be around 100K. And that doesn't mean in the bull market it could go crazy. It could go up to 400K. But
I think what you could see is something really ridiculous in between that.
mm-hmm.
And then you could see a lot of lows like in the 30s or something like that. Almost like, the last, because sometimes I just like to look at the most recent 4-year cycle thing, whatever you want to call that, where it goes to the high of like 19 and then it goes down to like 3,000. So now imagine if you just, multiply that times 10. So it goes to high of 990 and then it goes to a low of 30. And then we're sitting around 100,000, kind of like we are now, where it was like 10,000, not too long ago.
I guess that would be interesting to map out the opposite, like trough to trough, and see where our next trough might lay out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be a good idea. I don't think I've seen anyone do that before. I think our next bottom is going to be around here for this reason. That could be like an episode or a topic to talk about,
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys definitely would have to lead on that one.
I think all eyes are on 20K, to be honest with you. I think it would be nice to come back and settle and.
Well, yeah, look at that RSI. You might get a little more out of that, but that's got to cool off.
Yeah, and this is the weekly. So have we seen it shot up in the past and past bull cycles? Yeah. So you can't always just rely on that. Check you want to basically make sure that the volume is backing it up. Once this volume kind of takes off, that's when the RSI gets exhausted and things kind of reverse back. So I think a healthy bounce back would be to come back to like 13.8. Just find some support around 13.8 and then continue up and that towards 20K. And then maybe you reject off 20K and maybe come back around 16K and then pierce through. And just see a nice gradual grind.
That'd be the healthy way to do it, yeah.
That would be the healthy way to do it. But then you look at what the timeline events are rolling out. Particularly, I'm interested in commercial mortgage defaults, and even residential real estate defaults. I don't know if you guys are aware.
The liquidity event, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, all those things are frozen right now. You can't default on them. But that expires in March. So I'm interested to see what happens in March. And again, it just so happens to be like that's kind of when the bull cycles take off and this stuff.
You will see. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see play out. This is what Bitcoin was built for.
Yep.
I think one thing too is look at is like that 16K number. That seems like there's a lot of resistance right there. Anytime that we're kind of building up to that, because like you saw, like what was it? 2 days ago or yesterday, it was kind of getting up there, and then it immediately just went down.
Yeah, it's looking double toppy on the lower time frames.
Right.
Actually, so to me, it looks like it's just forming the bull flag or pennant.
It could very well be, but once you get to that 16K number, I think once you hit that and there's resistance becomes support, next thing you know, I mean, you could easily go to 20K like a snap of a finger.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
And
Well, that's actually, I wanted to mention that earlier too. Like the fib extensions is going to be all we have to kind of look at price targets.
Yeah.
Okay, you know.
and then
That's true.
when that happens too, that's where Greg's human psychology comes in, where people start seeing it hit all-time highs again, and then next thing you know, that 20,000 becomes 30,000, and then 30,000 becomes 40, and then you're like, whoa, what is going on? Where you wake up and you're seeing $1,000 moves in a day, or overnight when you're sleeping, which makes sleeping a lot harder,
Yeah.
So
because when did I start hearing about it on like 10-10 wins is when it broke like 10,000 last time.
yeah.
When are you going to start hearing about it like this? Is it going to be 50,000? What's going to be that number that everybody hears about it again?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to
be above 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the mania comes back in. But at any rate, I do. I don't mean to be a party pooper. I want to start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
No,
Do we have any other thoughts about a format? We want to bring news articles into this. How we might want to communicate in between.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is we'll communicate some stuff off whatever, and then what we'll do is kind of have something like a topic, or whatever, and then we'll build up for that.
Maybe for next week, here's an idea. We'll see what you guys think. I saw you had Crypto Panic on there, Greg, but maybe we could each pick like one news article or topic that we want to focus on, and we could spend a little while all three of us kind of talking about it.
Yeah,
Does that sound good for next week at least?
Yeah, and I also like to get into other cryptos, and not necessarily like anything crazy, but I definitely want to get Ethereum and the whole staking thing and what's coming up with that, because I think that's a sleeping giant in the mix. Because
okay, so maybe like maybe the following week, then all three of us can look into like Ethereum staking, see what we come up with, and kind of bring it together. Is that what you're thinking?
When you see Ethereum start really being staked, and then everyone starts locking up the Ethereum, because I don't know if you know anything about it, but once you lock that up, like you can't touch that for like a while, like years, like so until it gets to like the next phase, like not even next phase, like phase 3 or 4. So once it's locked up, there's going to be a lot less on the market, which is only going to drive the price to like ridiculous levels. So that's where you're going to see something really interesting happen with that, and then hopefully at some point, they start really building a lot of applications on that, because that's the biggest problem. Is I want to see more things being used for with it and being built on it, besides just DeFi, which is actually excellent, because we can get into that.
I mean, if Australia runs their entire currency through the Ethereum blockchain, that'd be a great start.
Yeah, I mean, what is the reward for staking? Do you have any idea?
It depends upon how many people are staking. So there's a chart. See, this is where I wish I could share my stuff on here, but there's a like a graph, right? On here. Let me see, just real quick. You can basically the minimum. I think it needs. All right, so it needs 473,951. No, it needs 524,288 ETH to launch the network, the mainnet, which is 16,384 validators. So to have one node or whatever, it's 32 ETH. And then, like I said, I got to get a little more into this, but once you do that, so the less that are staked, the more the interest is. The more that are staking, the less interest is. But like you see, like there's a thing. I'll find it. I'll send it to you. Where
that makes sense. They're splitting the mining reward essentially.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a graph, and you could select where how many ETH or how many nodes are being staked at once, and then as they increase, you could see the actual percentage decreasing. But I mean, it was anywhere between like 3 or 4% to like 16% or 12. I don't know. I don't want to make up numbers. So, but
what do you have in mind
as a percentage?
Yeah, what would you think is like
honestly
nice
to me? I mean, listen, I think 5% would be good, but even if it's 5%, I look at ETH also the price of it increasing too. So even though it's 5%, but when you have something that's 5%, but as also the value of it in dollars or fiat is also going up, that's where it becomes kind of like exponential, because you're getting percentage of something going up that also is going up in price. And when something goes up,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I understand.
Yeah.
You're earning
10
5%
times.
extra Ethereum, but the USD price is going up 30%
Right.
a year or something.
And you're just earning ETH. You're not earning dollars. You're earning ETH on staking, which is, the way it should be. You want to earn that. So, and then the more ETH you get, let's just say you get enough ETH, then you can run 2 nodes, and then you can run 3, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's where it gets interesting, where you're no longer making dollars. Same thing with like ADA, like both of us
Really look into the future, the implications of that too. Like, let's say Australia does their central bank digital currency. So on your phone is your wallet to use your central bank digital currency running on Ethereum. If you have a node on there, would you be earning micropayments of Ethereum just for having it? And that
No,
would
that would be
incentivize
burned.
people to use the network?
No, see, the ETH would be burned. So this is what makes it also more valuable. Where, yeah, you're making it's inflating through being staked, but it's deflating through being burned. So every time a transaction is made on a network, the ETH, the transaction fees are burned, and it's basically, so you kind of get a wash where you're not inflating the price of or the supply, because every time that someone's making it, someone's taking it by
No, I understand.
So
Kind of a
that
tug of war going on.
right. So that's kind of the benefit of it, and hopefully, like, it's like, again, this is infancy. Everything is just, it's like, in 10, like, and obviously technology is amazing, because technology also grows exponentially too in its advancements.
Imagine where we're going to be in 10 years. We're not even going to be 50 yet.
Yeah, I can't
And we're going
imagine.
to be we're going to be the new rich.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, and you can't even imagine what things are going to be like, and that's what I'm saying, like, because 10 years ago, this thing right here was like, people like, wait, what? You got a computer in your phone? Like, even like, let's say 15 years ago, where we're like, wait, so if you saw somebody 15 years ago, oh, by the way, in 15 years you're gonna have a computer in your pocket that you can do anything and everything with.
You can watch HD movies.
Yeah,
Streaming.
right. So that's what I'm saying, like, in 10, 15 years, like, who knows what's going to be out there, So
Yep.
on that note, I think we did a pretty good job. And, I say good night, everybody. And the Jets lost. They suck. 0-9.
You throw that in there. So for next week, I guess we'll chat in the Signal group a little more anyway. Come up with a little bit of an idea for next week.
There you go. Sounds good, guys.
All right. Good talk tonight. Talk to you next week.
All right. Good talk, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
See ya.